I know. I know what you're thinking. You're like, but Jane, you weren't going to do video. You said you weren't going to show your face. Okay, so maybe I like lie, I guess. No, but in all honesty, Daniel was actually the one who recommended me showing my face. So here we are using OBS, which is a whole science in itself. So just, you know, prayers for Jane that we get through this. But here we go. First episode of like Jane commentary on true crime. I'm still thinking of a name. By the time this is uploading, you see this, there should be a name. So insert name here. Hi. Anyways, I'm on here. I put out a post on Twitter or tweet, whatever you want to call it. I tweeted out into the world. I said, hey, if I were to do true crime and do Jane style commentary on it, what cases are there that you would like to see of me do? And someone suggested this shit. And now, as someone who's a true crime junkie who has watched who knows how many hours, probably in an unhealthy way, on true crime of all kind, here I am. I haven't heard of this case. I had no idea this fucking happened. I had no idea how I didn't hear about the and no one fucking talked about it. So here I am. Hi, I'm Jane. I'm here to talk about Duffy. I don't know if y'all remember back in like, God, I want to say like 2005 to 2012, a lot of great British talent, female singers were starting to like blow up big around that time. We got people like Amy Winehouse, you know, and Duffy. So in case you don't remember who Duffy is, I'm about to insert a very short clip of her number one famous song called Mercy, which we're gonna listen to here. Hit the beat and take it to the verse now. So you get the idea. Most of you will probably remember this song because it played everywhere on the radio back then, non-fucking stop. I mean, and it's such a great song. I never got sick of it, unlike some songs that play too much around that time on the radio. Kind of like, oh, fuck this song. But this was definitely not one of those. So Duffy, what the fuck happened to Duffy? I don't know if y'all remember, for those who are like my age and older, you know, she kind of blew up and then she just disappeared, right? And I remember literally like a couple years ago sitting there and thinking like, she randomly like popped out. I was like, man, I wonder if she ever made more music or like what she's been up to and stuff. And comes to find out, our girl Duffy went through some shit and no one really talked about it. I mean, it was reported briefly, the end. Like, that was that. Our girl Duffy got no attention in regards to this shit. So for those who haven't heard about this case, let me dissect it from the beginning. Also, I just want to real quick point out my background is a disaster right now. It's there's a bunch of shit in my background, okay? So I'm obviously not going to be filming this video in one evening. This is going to be something I'm going to be doing over time. So you're going to slowly see me change my background and get my shit together back here and finally finish it, because I kind of like went full send and then life, right? So don't be fucking judgy out there. But God, let's start from the beginning. Let's do our girl Duffy some fucking justice, shall we? Like, all right, so our girl Amy Ann Duffy was born on June 23rd, 1984. She's a British Welsh singer, songwriter, and an actress. Her debut album, Rock Fairy, released in 2008, became the best-selling album in the United Kingdom that year and led to worldwide attention. It spawned the successful single Mercy, what we just heard, dope track. In 2009, Duffy received a Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Album for Rock Fairy, one of 3 nominations, and won 3 out of 4 Brit Awards nominations for British Breakthrough, Best British Female, and Best British Album. So your girl like really was fucking killing it in life, right? In 2010, she made her acting debut in the film Patagonia. God, I probably butchered the fuck out of this. I'm gonna be butchering a lot of shit, just and released her second studio album, Endlessly, to moderate success. See, I didn't even hear about the second album. I suck. Heads up, I suck at life. She was brought up by her parents, John Duffy and Joyce Smith. She has a twin sister, Kate, and an older sister, Kellyanne. Duffy's parents divorced when she was 10, and she moved to Letterson near Pembrokeshire town of Fishguard with her mothers and sisters. She went to high school, whatever, right? She, at the age of 17, she went to campus of some sort to study, and then subsequently went to the University of Chester and studied commercial music production on the Warrington campus. From 2004, she studied performing arts at the Parkgate campus. Okay, so your girl, you know, she did her due diligence in the music world, which I think is very obvious when you hear her talent and you see her lyrics, and, you know, just take that all fully in. I really, really, really can't stress enough. Listen to the Rock Fairy album from beginning to start. It's chef's kiss. So, in September 1998, at the age of 14, Duffy was briefly put in a police safe house when authorities uncovered a plot by her stepfather's ex-wife to pay a hitman £3,000 to kill her stepfather, Philip Smith. Okay, so shit's already crazy. Smith's ex-wife, Dawn Watson, was sentenced to a 3.5-year jail term for soliciting murder. I was so terrified. I felt so ill. Duffy recounted in 2008 as reported by the NME. Duffy describes living in the safe house as a dog-eat-dog, claustrophobic and isolating experience. At age 15, she ran away back to her father's home. Duffy said in retrospect, it was a horrendous thing to do. Her mother and sisters did not speak to her for about a year afterwards. In reaction to her parents' breakup, her next 3 years were rebellious period that included binge drinking and stealing a rowing boat. To be honest, the fact that this isn't even reported, I'm like, whatever. That's, you know, who cares? I think a lot of teens do a lot of crazy shit when they're going through some shit. So I'm like, okay, so all that happened, right? So that's like kind of like gives you a little bit of background into Duffy. That's her life. That's what she did. That's how she came about, right? That's the hard work she put in. So that's the shit our homegirl Duffy did. But that's not what this video is about now, is it? So let's... there's no really nice way to get into it, right? So trigger warning. There's gonna be a lot of fucked up shit mentioned, and if you can't handle that, just, you know, wait for the next fucking video, because this is gonna be a little crazy. But homegirl, man, she went through some shit. So let me tell you about it. So the Mercy singer, who first revealed her trauma in an Instagram post in February in 2020, started by warning readers they might find her account upsetting and advised those unable to take on someone else's suffering not to read it. So essentially, she kind of talked a little bit about on her in an Instagram post about what had happened to her. So 10 years ago, she was kidnapped. Flown out of country, raped for weeks, mind you, and then brought back. Okay, and girl went dark, right? So she first talked a little bit about it on a Instagram post in February, and then in April of 2020, she posted a 3,600 word essay, I guess, about the experience and what happened, right? So published in detail about the devastating experience on her website duffywords.com, and explained It was my birthday. I was drugged at a restaurant. I was drugged then for 4 weeks and traveled to a foreign country. So this happened. And when it happened, she actually went entirely dark. And that's why we didn't hear from her really for a really fucking, for a very long time. So a few statements she made was, rape is like living with murder. You're alive but dead, she wrote. All I can say is it took an extremely long time and sometimes feeling never ending to reclaim the shattered pieces of me. She said she didn't go to the police because it didn't feel safe. I can't remember getting on a plane and came around on the back of a traveling vehicle. I was put in a hotel room and the perpetrator returned and raped me. I remember the pain and trying to stay conscious in the room after it happened. I was stuck with him for another day. He didn't look at me. I was to walk behind him. I was somewhat conscious and withdrawn. I could have been disposed by him. I contemplated running away to a neighboring city or town as he slept, but I had no cash and I was afraid he would call the police on me for running away and maybe they would track me down as a missing person. It's crazy. So when I was doing research, I found about 17, 18 or 19 websites, somewhere around that. Let's say 17 to 20 some website that did briefly report about it. However, it wasn't discussed further, and I'm kind of mind blown by that because how often do we hear something like this happening to a celebrity? It's just you don't see this happen like that, right? So from what I'm understanding, the police never even did anything, which is so insane to me because to put it in perspective, or actually no, I'm just remembering. Do you guys remember when Kim Kardashian got robbed? Her hotel room got robbed. Do y'all remember that? That was all over the place, right? So now imagine Kim Kardashian gets kidnapped, drugged, kidnapped, flown to a foreign country, held against her will for 4 fucking weeks, and then it's just magically brought back. And then she goes dark for 10 years and comes back and talks about it. It would break the fucking everything, right? Now, before we dissect and go through her entire 3,600 word essay recounting the whole thing, I think it's really important that we discuss the timing of this coming out because I think a lot of it will then also make sense why what happened that happened. So Duffy came out about this in 2020, first in February, then in April of 2020, which if you guys remember, in March of 2020, the whole world essentially went on lockdown because of COVID-19, right? So at the time, there was a lot of things going on, a lot of COVID, a lot of politics, a lot of civil politics, a lot of stuff was going on in the media. And so when she came forward in April of 2020, unfortunately, from what I can tell, it really did get washed under all the things that were going on at this time, right? Which is very unfortunate because her story should have gotten more attention, especially in the height of the Me Too movement and everything that's been going on the last couple years. I think her story would have been very important to hear, especially because if this can happen on a celebrity level, obviously we know on a civilian level it happens a lot more, right? So the fact that she came forward with this during COVID, timing wise, terrible. Obviously no one's fault, just terrible timing. But so this is going to make a little bit more sense, but let's just get into her statement.
The fifth house. It troubles me that this story contains sorrow, when so many need the opposite of that at this time. I can only hope that my words serve as a momentary distraction or maybe even some comfort that one can come out of darkness. We are in troubling times, where we've not seen such national and global worry since World War II. Now, it's more important than ever to think about the impact we have on each other. There will be great change to come from our shared crisis, a renewed understanding and appreciation of freedom and human connection. But nothing comforts loss, only time. I'm not an academic or public speaker, but I have to mention our current crisis. These are tragic days. Like you, I worry about relatives, loved ones, and colleagues. Our tears are shared. The only cure now is prevention, by staying in and allowing the frontline workers to cope. I could have decided to not release further words during these times, I don't think there is ever a right time, since promising to follow up in due course. If you are reading this, I must warn you it contains information some may find upsetting. This story is not going anywhere. It will remain online. If you are not able to take on someone else's suffering or the recounting of such, I recommend you do not read on. For me, in these hours, I recall the words of Maya Angelou, who once said there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you, and I share mine with you today. I posted the words I wrote a few weeks ago, because I was tired of hiding, never feeling free or burden-free. I had become enmeshed with my story like a dark secret. It made me alone and feel alone. What is also hard to explain is that, in hiding, in not talking, I was allowing the rape to become a companion, me and it living in my being. I no longer wanted to feel that intimacy with it. A decade of that intimacy has been destructive. I had to set myself free. I have been hurt, and it would have been dangerous to talk from that hurt place in the past, prior to feeling ready, unable to do what I am doing today. Previously, I also considered and explored human rights laws to change my name off public record and disappear to another country and maybe become a florist or something, so that I could put the past behind with a new life. Because, although I was almost unfindable, I daydreamed of having a different haircut, a new name, a boyfriend, and become completely forever forgotten. As time went on, it then became about realizing, I can't keep hiding, as thrilling as coffee in Paris seems. Since the incident I experienced happened, it was upsetting to think of talking openly, frightening. Seasons would pass and come and go, and I would be further removed from where I once was, every year. The longer I left it, the less I could see an image in my mind, of something I recognized that I could reach back to. That's why I, at times, would admit defeat and think I can't ever talk and face it. So, I should just keep disappearing, turning the lights off in my life. Having not yet established a thriving personal life, or had my own family, I would be anguished thinking if I reveal my story publicly, openly to the world, it would hinder my future romantic life. This is not exactly the advert I wanted before meeting the love of my life. I would also worry about coming back to music and the risk of constantly facing the question of what happened. Where did you disappear to? Why did you vanish? What have you been up to for so many years? I could not imagine fabricating some story, that I had been rowing across the world's seas. I would have had to lie, and I couldn't lie. So, between fears of not being able to emotionally withstand speaking, not being able to lie, and concerns of inheriting a stigma that could affect my future personal life, I would decide to not speak at all, remain vanished, or to daydream of reinventing myself forever. I thought the public disclosure of my story would utterly destroy my life, emotionally, while hiding my story was destroying my life so much more. So, I just have to be strong and disclose it, and face all my fears head on. I've come to realize I can't erase myself. I live in my being, so I have to be completely honest and have faith in the outcome. I never knew if I would get to the place of being able to do this. I am grateful to get here. Not everyone has the privilege of being able to talk, such as I am doing today. Stories much more heinous and sorrowful, more inhumane than mine, go untold every day. All of our lives have immense meaning and value, and when we come to really realize nothing matters but humanity, we begin to really see each other, by the tragedies and joys we all share. Our smiles and our tears are what make us all the same, and while we are observing a great amount of suffering and loss in our world, in what seems like a battle that cannot be won, it compels us to truly appreciate the gift of life, and the gift of love, and the values that matter the most. I have been very warned by some I know not to tell you what I am about to tell you. Some alluded that I would pretty much be finished in whatever chances I had to make music publicly again. Some have said I would be scorned by the public. Another said I would be called selfish that the rapist is still at large. It has served to delay my talking by weeks, and me just lying in bed looking at the ceiling trying to find meaning. I take my personal freedom over any amount of stones that can be thrown at me. If I destroy my future, I do it to honor my past. Rape stripped me of my human rights, to experience a life with autonomy from fear. It has already stolen 1/3 my of life. Deep down I do know it would have been a shame and done such an immense disservice to my existence, to just delete myself and forget what I had experienced in music publicly. It was also not just my burden, so many others lived with the big question too of what happened. The record label, live agents, promoters, publicists, musicians, stylists, hairdressers, makeup, lighting, production, crew, people I would meet, people I once knew. No one, utterly no one, knew what happened. It kept me removed from those I could actually trust. Mostly I did not want to trouble anyone else with what I had experienced. The final catalyst of wanting to talk was unusual, I think. What really finally made me go, I just can't bear the weight of this anymore. It was so simple but so profound. What would be the catalyst to make me untrap myself? It was being told by a male I had come to know and really like as a friend, that most men would run a mile if they knew you were raped. I crumbled. I felt very low for a few days and reflected a lot, and I thought, one night, like an epiphany, that the knowledge of my truth makes me no less lovable. The dream of love did die. I finally realized it didn't need to. And just like a light came on, I realized I know what it is to live. Therefore I know what it is to be human. Please skip the next 20 lines if you do not want to read the exact account of the kidnapping. It was my birthday. I was drugged at a restaurant. I was drugged then for 4 weeks and traveled to a foreign country. I can't remember getting on the plane and came round in the back of a traveling vehicle. I was put into a hotel room and the perpetrator returned and raped me. I remember the pain and trying to stay conscious in the room after it happened. I was stuck with him for another day. He didn't look at me. I was to walk behind him. I was somewhat conscious and withdrawn. I could have been disposed of by him. I contemplated running away to the neighboring city or town, as he slept, but had no cash and I was afraid he would call the police on me for running away, and maybe they would track me down as a missing person. I do not know how I had the strength to endure those days. I did feel the presence of something that helped me stay alive. I flew back with him. I stayed calm and as normal as someone could in a situation like that. And when I got home, I sat, dazed, like a zombie. I knew my life was in immediate danger. He made veiled confessions of wanting to kill me. With what little strength I had, my instinct was to then run, and find somewhere to live that he could not find. The perpetrator drugged me in my own home in the 4 weeks. I do not know if he raped me there during that time. I only remember coming round in the car in the foreign country and the escape that would happen by me fleeing in the days following that. I do not know why I was not drugged overseas. It leads me to think I was given a Class A drug and he could not travel with it. After it happened, someone I knew came to my house and saw me on my balcony staring into space, wrapped in a blanket. I cannot remember getting home. The person said I was yellow in color and I was like a dead person. They were obviously frightened but did not want to interfere. They had never seen anything like it. Thereafter, it didn't feel safe to go to the police. I felt if anything went wrong, I would be dead, and he would have killed me. I could not risk being mishandled or it being all over the news during my danger. I really had to follow what instincts I had. I have told 2 female police officers, during different threatening incidents in the past decade, it is on record. And as I grieved what I must have done to invite this into my life, I read something that said, in the end, it's never between them and you, it's always between them and God. That helped me a lot in the absence of justice. Once someone threatened to out my story and I had to tell a female police officer what information the person held about me, and why the blackmail was so frightening. The second incident was when 3 men tried to enter my house as intruders. I told the second female officer about the rape then also. The identity of the rapist should be only handled by the police, and that is between me and them. The first person I ever told was a psychologist. Months later, a leading expert in the UK in complex trauma and sexual violence. I have no idea how I was so lucky to find her all those years ago. Her beautiful blue eyes, pink sofa, huge library, amazing brain, and skill. Without her I may not have made it through. I was high risk of suicide in the aftermath. She got to know me, saw me as a person, learned about me and navigated me. She did it very gently. I could not look her in the eyes for the first 8 or so sessions. Eye contact was something I struggled with. The thought of recovering was almost impossible. In the aftermath I would not see someone, a physical soul, for sometimes weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, remaining alone. I would take off my pajamas and throw them in the fire and put on another set. My hair would get so knotted from not brushing it. As I grieved, I cut it all off. I am sharing this because we are living in a hurting world and I am no longer ashamed that something deeply hurt me, anymore. I believe that if you speak from the heart within you, the heart within others will answer. As dark as my story is, I do speak from my heart, for my life, and for the life of others, whom have suffered the same. I have no shame in telling you either. I had spent almost 10 years completely alone, and it still burns my heart to write it. I owe it to myself to say it. I feel obliged to explain how challenging recovering truly was, and to finally disclose it. I hope it comforts you to feel less ashamed, if you feel alone. After the rape and kidnapping I had a handful of romantic experiences and each one would love bomb me and want the person on the album cover, while I was just a person hurt. It was futile. You may wonder where was my family. Those who wanted to help, were just too far away. The toll of me hiding, this last decade, also meant I was estranged from all. What happened was not only a betrayal to me, to my life, a violence that nearly killed me. It stole a lot from other people too. I was just not the same person for so long. Rape is like living murder. You are alive, but dead. All I can say is it took an extremely long time, sometimes feeling never ending, to reclaim the shattered pieces of me. This may hit a nerve with you reading this because I know you are all isolated at this time. I should probably elaborate on how I survived that seclusion further down this piece. I promise you, I know a pain to the guts of all my being, and I cannot let it cloud my life anymore. I now stand in all of me. But I do not want your pity. I'm telling you all this to put my wounds to the light where the dark can no longer keep me. I would not be telling you the account of my experiences if I did not now know true healing. I'm not proud of my story. I mourned wishing I had been dealt another hand, but it happened, and I have come to terms with it. It took so long for me to speak because after I was raped and held captive, I fled. I moved 5 times in the immediate 3 years after, never feeling safe from the rapist. I was on the run for so long. I found somewhere to live, the 5th house. It was not as confined as the other houses, where I grieved silently, in townhouses or apartments. This place I would spend solitary years to find the stability to recover. I had stopped running and relocating. I felt he could not find me in the 5th house. I felt safe. I feel safe now. When the ordeal happened, it destabilized me so severely. It took years and years, around 90,000 hours. I sometimes didn't know how I could make it through. It was hard and almost impossible. But I got here, as will you. Hallelujah. I came back to Wales recently. I stood and looked at the sea and felt a part of me breathe again. I had distanced myself from it all. Then the catalyst I mentioned, being told most men would run a mile, made me face the fear of it not hindering my romantic life. Ironically, rape is not only an assault, it's a brain injury, and although I may sometimes get frightened still, it has nothing to do with love. Finally, the realization that very thing that hurt me, will become the very thing that heals me. I faced a deeply inhumane experience. Only humanity can heal that. Ostracization and isolation is known to be a form of torture. If anyone would have told me I would share my times of isolation with a nation isolated, I would never have believed them. What I can share though, at this time, during this shared experience, is the science. The brain's dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, which registers physical pain, is activated when we are isolated. Knowing the mind's science enables you to manage it. And isolation is a small price to pay for saving lives, therefore we must be strong in the face of it. This demands us all, as one, to act for each other. Never has mindfulness been so vital as it is now. If you are reading this and are sad, my encouragement to you is that, to know pain, you must first know how to love. Only the absence of love causes pain. So, go find it. Seek love in everything, even in a teacup. There is also a real science to being grateful. Research shows that gratitude can heal your body, mind, and those you are grateful to. So, by being thankful for what you do have, and the selfless acts of others during this time, lifts you and them. And of talking of community and human thoughtfulness, some of you really helped me in real time when you wrote comments beneath the original statement I wrote. You put, "Do not be afraid to run for cover." Another said, "Breathe. Just breathe," as I was worried about what I had done, when it went so quickly to the news, as I could not sleep some nights. One of you wrote, "I feel you will always be protected from here." I agreed. I knew what you meant. I faced my greatest life lesson to speak. Before our current crisis, people offered me their homes, to come and have food with them, their telephone numbers and personal stories. It's been very intimate to be with those comments, that people wrote, and read them. And this is what defines the power of people, of kindness, and humanity. I did not expect any kind of reaction similar to the volume of what was seen. Thank you. I did not speak to seek friends, but the kindness was an emotional experience for me. I also received messages, from others whom were sexually abused and raped, of all ages and races and places and genders. I want you to know I saw and read them. I read every word, and your story lives on in me. If you saw the messages I have received, on Instagram, from young males whom have been raped, women whose cases were adjourned, lives that have been stolen in violence. One young man said, "I will never be able to be liberated like you from rape." He cannot walk the streets of his home, afraid. This is a weapon of war. I hope they too can find a way to be liberated in their own way, as I am finding mine. Anyone cynical about what I am doing, please don't be. I have no control where my words traveled or will travel. I speak as a human being, from a remote town, overlooking the sea, in the middle of nowhere. This is not fireworks and champagne for me. Nobody who reveals such a wound feels elated, only peace. And so, what about music from here, maybe you ask? When I sing, I feel like a bird. But it's not what this is directly about. I'm doing this to be freed, for all of me to be freed. What follows remains to be seen. I also won't be doing any more unannounced statements on this. As liberating it's been to finally speak and to finally sing, albeit on radio, I will now return to quietness. I thank Joe Wiley for letting me share a song on radio, during these times. Meant a lot to me. I know this much though, I owe it to myself to release a body of work someday, though I very much doubt I will ever be the person people once knew. My music will be measured on the merit of its quality, and the story will be something I experienced and not something that describes me. It is for you. They do say nothing worthwhile came without sacrifice. Your personal actions, decisiveness, and commitment is making the difference now. As we come together, we see results, and there is just so much hope to take from that, and I really don't know what's next for me. I would like to experience me being who I really am, for the first time, privately, to feel the peace that I have been, until now, only half feeling. I ask myself now, as I write this, what makes me feel more beautiful, more hopeful, and more at peace? So, if I do indeed press send and put this online, I hope it brings me the smile in my eyes, the light in my life, that has been absent for just so long. I can now leave this decade behind, where the past belongs. Hopefully no more what happened to Duffy questions, now you know, and I am free.